Hi, it's Mr. White, the Social Studies guy, with a special video edition focusing on President's Day. As we know, that Ohio is known as the mother of presidents for the number of people that were sent to the White House from the Buckeye State. We're here today filming at the Hayes Presidential Center in Fremont, and I'm sitting at a replica of the Resolute desk, which was a gift to the United States from British Queen Victoria. This was at the time when President Hayes was president. He used this desk. He was very proud to use the desk as a gift from Queen Victoria, and I'm very honored to be sitting here today as I talk to you at this Resolute desk. We're talking about President's Day this year because we want people to go and see the different sites that presidents have lived in Ohio. Some have homes with museums, some have museums in different places. So what we're going to do is talk a little about each one and try to convince you to use this President's Day the way it's intended, to find out more about the presidents of the United States, especially those from Ohio. Now, since we're here right now in Hayes, we'll start out talking about what's going on here, and it's going to be a very, very busy day here at the Hayes Center. They have a tremendous amount of activities planned, and if you're anywhere within driving distance of Fremont, Ohio, I strongly suggest this be a place you'd want to be. At 9:15 to 4:30, there will be tours of the Hayes Presidential Home, the first floor. This is a very popular attraction, so we expect a lot of people to be here touring the home. They have some very knowledgeable tour guides that will make sure that you understand what and why that home is so important. It's important also, I should mention before we go any further, that when we started this video series, one of the reasons I got interested in Ohio history was about reading Henry Howell's Historical Collections of Ohio, where he visited the counties, and when they came up with a second edition, this is where they started filming at, right here at the Hayes home in Fremont, Ohio, which makes it very personal to me because that's where my love of Ohio history got started. Going back to what's happening here on President's Day, at 10:15 a.m., there'll be an artifact display near the carriage on the museum main level. At 11 o'clock, there will be presidential trivia in the history lab on the lower level. 11:30, story time. 1 p.m., presidential trivia again in the history lab on the lower level. And 1:30, story time again. 2:15, an artifact display near the carriage on the museum main level. And at 3 o'clock, more presidential trivia in the history lab in the lower level. And again, the Hayes home will be open for tours from 9:15 to 4:30. So I strongly suggest that you put this on your calendar as a visit here in Fremont, Ohio to the Hayes Home and Presidential Center. Now, there are other events going on throughout the state honoring some of our presidents from Ohio. If you're in Northeast Ohio, Mentor, Ohio, is the James A. Garfield Presidential Home. And they have, again, just like here in Fremont, they're going to have presidential trivia. They're going to have tours of the home and kids' activities. All these are free, and that's an absolutely beautiful home. So I might suggest you think about that if you're anywhere in that area. Also in Northeast Ohio, at the birthplace of President McKinley in Niles, Ohio, they're going to be open from 1 to 4:30. And they're going to be having actually a reenactor portraying President McKinley. And President McKinley was actually one of the presidents I first got interested in because although he was born in Niles, he also lived much of his boyhood in Poland, Ohio, which is near Youngstown, a suburb of Youngstown where I'm from. And I would go by the McKinley home. There's a plaque on it, like many historical homes have. And so I became interested in President McKinley because I drove by that house so often. President Harding, down in Marion, Ohio, has a wonderful home, and that's going to be open from 12 to 4. Free activities for children and families. They're going to have regular tour hours. That is a great place to go. That's in Central Ohio, not too far from Columbus. And I think you'd find that to be very interesting. Again, I taught 4 years at Marion River Valley, and during that time, I was able to tour the Harding home. And it's very, very interesting. And President Harding really has a great story because he was the only president who was actually a journalist because of his with the Marion Star newspaper, and he has a very good story to tell, which you find out a lot more there at the Harding home. The Ohio History Center in Columbus always has a wonderful President Day celebration with lots of activities for kids and for families. There'll be reenactors there. One will be very interesting, will be one person who is portraying Victoria Woodhull, who was actually the first woman to run for president in 1872. There'll also be story time for children. There'll be an Abraham Lincoln reenactor, which will be interesting because when you start talking about the presidents, Abraham Lincoln certainly is one of the best known ones and ones that students really enjoy learning about. Now, there's many other presidential sites in Ohio, and you might want to look at those and see what other activities that are going on. And the more we find out about our presidents from Ohio, the more it makes us understand how important Ohio's role was in governing this nation. So I encourage you to use this President's Day, and I hope you visit one of the places that we talked about.